Hello, 7th graders. We're going to be working on integers, and that's going to be adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. This should be the video you watch at the beginning of the integer menu, and if you have any questions, make sure that you ask them before you go to the notes portion, which will be linked on the website. As a reminder from last year, if you remember, we have positive numbers are really scrawny and weak. So we like to call them Mr. Evans numbers because when you look at Mr. Evans, that's what he looks like. And then our negative numbers are really big and powerful and strong, and we call them Mr. Schmidt numbers because when you look at Mr. Schmidt, it makes a lot of sense that we would call them negative numbers. If we had a negative number and a positive number would fight, it'd be pretty obvious that the negative number would win. If we had a negative number fight another negative number, they would beat each other up and they would become a positive or a Mr. Evans type number. So keep that in mind as we move on to some examples. We're going to start with adding and subtracting, which we know hopefully from 6th grade that are the same thing, so they get packaged together. So when we're working on these problems, and I hope you write this in your notes, there's always going to be 3 steps that we want to work with. Step number 1 is the direction, or sorry, step number 1 is the starting number. Starting number. I'm going to run out of room here. Step number 2 is the direction. And then step 3 is the answer. All of the problems on this video I'm going to do using a number line. If you were someone who used plus minus chips as a 6th grader, that's totally fine. You can use them again, but the video won't show that example just because most students use the number line. So on this first problem, the starting number, step number 1, is going to be right here, which is -3. So once I've dealt with that -3, I don't need to work with it anymore. I don't care about the number in the front. Step number 2 then is the direction. Well, that's this middle part right here, and it's just a plus sign or an addition sign, so that means I'm going to be moving to the right. And I'm going to move to the right a distance of 9. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So my answer is a positive 6. Really emphasizing all 3 steps. So down at the bottom we have a problem that's a little bit different. So step number 1 is our starting number, which always going to be the first number, which is in this case a -4. Once I've worked with that, I want to completely ignore that -4. I don't want to work with it anymore. So then step number 2 is I want to figure out what direction we're going to go. Well, now we have a positive and a negative number in the ring. If we notice, we have a positive number and a negative number in the ring together. Well, that means that the negative is going to win out. Mr. Schmidt would clearly beat Mr. Evans in a fight. So that means we're going to move left on the number line and a left of 3. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 to the left, which my answer then becomes -7. So remembering those are always the 3 steps that we're going to work with. So I want you to do these 2 problems on your own, and then I'm going to put up the solution at the end. So for this problem, step number 1, our starting point is -6. I then want to notice that the 2 numbers in the middle are both negative. A negative number fights a negative number. They beat each other up and they become a positive, which means I'm going to go to the right 2. So my answer to this problem is -4. If you're someone who looks at this problem and says your answer is +4, I hope that you think of the number line and realize that how far away a +4 is from where we started. So if we're only going a distance away from -6, the only two answers that would make sense in this case would be a -8 and a -4, and then you're just going the wrong direction. If your answer was a +4, you're not using the 3 steps correctly, so we really got to break that down. On this one down here, our starting number is -3. The direction in the middle is a positive, so we're going to go to the right, and we're going to go to the right 5, which means our answer here is +2. So here were 4 short examples on how to solve these problems. If you need more help, make sure you ask me. There also is a note portion after this to give you some more examples. Now, when we're doing multiplying and dividing of positive and negative numbers, we really want to emphasize that if we have positive times a positive or a positive divided by a positive, if we think back to that original picture, if we have Mr. Evans fight Mr. Evans, the answer is always going to be a positive number. When positives fight positives, the answer is going to be a positive. Now, if we have a positive and a negative fighting in either multiplication or division, we know that the negative is going to win, whether that number comes second or if that number comes first. And then finally, if we have a negative fighting a negative, 2 Mr. Schmidts fight each other, they smack and they beat each other up, they're going to turn into a weakling or a Mr. Evans. So make sure you have this chart in your notes. This is hopefully review from last year. And if you have any questions, like always, make sure you ask me in class and we can work through some examples together. On this page, I'm going to go through a couple problems. So the first one is going to be 16 divided by -8. That's going to be 16 split into equal groups of 8. Well, 16 divided by 8 is going to be 2 groups of 8. But we have a positive fighting a negative. The negative is going to win. So our answer should be -2. On this problem over here, just like it, we have a negative fighting a positive. Doesn't matter that it came first this time, but it's multiplication. 4 times 6 is 24. And this answer will be negative. Down here in the bottom left, we have 11 times 12. Well, we're going to have to do it this way. But we know a negative times a negative is going to give us a positive answer. So we can basically ignore them in the problem. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 10 is 20. So then 0 here. 10 times 1 is 10. 10 times 10 is 100. So we end up getting a positive 132. Here in the bottom right, we have a negative divided by a negative. Therefore, our answer has to be positive. -5 divided by -5 is +1. I want you to try these problems on your own. So here, 32 divided by -4 is going to be a -8. 14 times 9, negative times negative will be a positive answer. So we're going to multiply with the algorithm. So positive 126. 6 times 9 is 54, as my friend 50 Cent would say, 54. But since one of them is a negative, our answer will be a negative. And here, 2 negatives divided together will give us a positive answer of 13. Now, like always, make sure if you have questions that you ask me before you work on the notes section. If you think you're ready, work on the notes. And then this will earn you 2 points on your menu when it's done.